Before we dive into the story, tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more heart-touching tales. Wishing you a beautiful day now. Sit back and enjoy the story. The rain hammered against the cracked windows of the abandoned textile factory like bullets against armor. Detective Maya Chen pressed her back against the cold brick wall, her breath forming ghostly clouds in the frigid air. 6 months of hunting the phantom had led to this moment, this decaying monument to Detroit's industrial past. Where rust stained everything the color of dried blood, her radio crackled with static. "Chen, we've lost visual on the suspect. Pete. Target is not in sight." Maya's fingers tightened around her service weapon. The phantom had killed 7 people in 6 months, each death more brutal than the last. Each crime scene scrubbed clean of evidence, except for a single white orchid left behind. Tonight would end differently. It had to. A shadow moved across the broken glass above her head. Maya's pulse quickened as she tracked the movement, her training screaming at her to call for backup, to wait for support. But the phantom was slipping away again, vanishing like smoke through her fingers, just as he had every time before. She pushed through the rusted factory door, her flashlight cutting through the darkness like a blade. The air inside was thick, with the smell of decay and something else, something metallic that made her stomach clench. 20 years on the force had taught her to recognize the scent of fresh blood. "Detroit PD," she called out, her voice echoing off the empty machinery. "Building is surrounded. Come out with your hands visible." Silence answered her, broken only by the steady drip of water from the ceiling above. Maya moved deeper into the factory, her footsteps muffled by years of accumulated dust and debris. Industrial skeletons of long-dead machines loomed around her like metal monsters, her shadows dancing in her flashlight beam. Then she saw him. He stood at the far end of the factory floor, perfectly still, perfectly composed, tall and lean, dressed in expensive clothes that seemed absurdly out of place in this graveyard of American manufacturing. His dark hair was damp from the rain, his face angular and aristocratic, almost beautiful in its cold precision. What stopped Maya's breath wasn't his appearance. It was his eyes. Even across 30 feet of empty space, she could see them clearly, pale blue like winter ice, and absolutely, completely calm. "You found me," he said, his voice carrying easily through the vast space. There was no fear in it, no surprise. Only a kind of tired satisfaction, as if he'd been waiting for this moment as long as she had been hunting him. Maya kept her weapon trained on his center mass, her stance steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "Hands where I can see them now," he complied slowly, raising his hands with the fluid grace of a dancer. Detective Maya Chen, badge number 4472. 20 years with the Detroit Police Department, divorced, no children. Lives alone in a studio apartment on Cass Avenue with a cat named Hendrix. The personal details hit her like physical blows. Maya's grip tightened on her weapon. "How do you know that?" "I know everything about you, Detective. I know you drink your coffee black because cream reminds you of your mother's funeral. I know you haven't slept more than 4 hours a night. Since you took my case, I know you've been dreaming about me." The last words were spoken so softly they might have been imagined, but they sent ice through Maya's veins because they were true. For weeks now, she'd been waking in cold sweats, fragments of dreams clinging to her consciousness like spiderwebs. Dreams of pale blue eyes and white orchids, and a voice calling her name in the darkness. "You're under arrest for the murders of Jennifer Walsh, David Martinez, Sarah Kim." She began the litany of victims. But he interrupted her with a slight shake of his head. "You don't understand yet," he said. "You think you're hunting a killer, but you're wrong. You're hunting yourself. That's enough." Maya took a step forward, her finger hovering over the trigger. "Turn around," hands against the wall. "My name is Adrian Blackwood," he continued as if she hadn't spoken. "And 6 months ago, you killed my sister." The words landed like a bomb in the silence between them. Maya felt the world tilt, felt her carefully constructed reality crack like glass under pressure. "That's impossible. Haven't killed anyone, haven't you?" Adrian's smile was sharp as broken crystal. December 15th. The Riverside Warehouse. Officer involved shooting. Suspect was armed and dangerous. moving toward a civilian hostage. Maya's mouth went dry. She remembered that night, remembered the darkness and confusion, the split-second decision that haunted her dreams. The suspect was male. The report clearly stated, "The reports lie," Adrian said quietly. "Just like you've been lying to yourself for 6 months. Name was Alina Blackwood. She was my twin sister. And you put 3 bullets in her chest because you believed what they told you to believe." The factory floor seemed to shift beneath Maya's feet. Alina Blackwood. She remembered the name from the files, remembered the medical examiner's confusion about certain physical characteristics that didn't quite match the initial description, remembered the way the case had been buried, pushed through the system with unusual speed. She was reaching for a gun, Maya whispered, but even as she spoke, the words, doubt crept into her voice like poison. She was reaching for her phone, Adrian replied, to call the police, to report the real criminals who had taken her hostage to get to me. Maya's hands began to shake. "You're lying, am I?" Adrian tilted his head, studying her with those unsettling, pale eyes. "Then tell me, Detective, why was the warehouse swept clean before the crime scene unit arrived? Why were the security cameras mysteriously malfunctioning? Why was your partner, Detective Richardson, transferred to narcotics the week after the shooting?" Each question was a knife between her ribs. Maya had wondered about all of those things, had filed reports that went unanswered, had asked questions that were deflected or ignored. She'd been told to move on, to trust the system, to let the internal investigation handle the details. "Richardson sold you out," Adrian continued, his voice soft with something that might have been sympathy. "He sold you all out. But you were the one who pulled the trigger. So you're the one who has to pay, by murdering innocent people." Maya's training reasserted itself, anger burning through the confusion. 7 victims had nothing to do with your sister, didn't they? Adrian's smile widened, and for the first time, Maya saw something genuinely dangerous in his expression. Jennifer Walsh was the medical examiner who falsified Elena's autopsy. David Martinez was the crime scene photographer who destroyed the real evidence. Sarah Kim was the prosecutor who made sure the case never went to trial. The names hung in the air like a death sentence. Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach as she realized the truth. "You've been cleaning house," Justice Adrian corrected. "Something your system failed to provide, and the others? What did they do to deserve death? They were complicit. They all knew the truth and chose silence." His eyes never left hers. "Just like you've been choosing silence for 6 months." Maya's radio crackled again. "Chen, report status. We're moving in." She reached for the radio with her free hand, never taking her eyes off Adrian. But as her fingers touched the device, his next words stopped her cold. "Tell them you found nothing," he said quietly. "Tell them the phantom got away again. And tomorrow night, meet me at the Riverside warehouse. Come alone, and I'll show you what really happened to Alina. Show you the truth they've been hiding from you. I'm not making deals with a serial killer, and you'll never know who you really are." "Killed that night," Adrian said, "and the murders will continue. 7 down, Detective. How many more until you're ready to face the truth?" The sound of boots echoed through the factory as her backup team breached the entrance. Maya had seconds to decide. Arrest the man who claimed to be seeking justice for her mistake, or let him walk away and accept his invitation into hell. Adrian began to move, backing toward a window that opened onto the fire escape. 24 hours, Detective. Riverside warehouse. Midnight. Come alone, or the next body they find will have your badge number carved into its chest." He was through the window and gone before Maya could react, vanishing into the rain and darkness like the phantom he'd been named for. Her backup team flooded the factory floor, weapons drawn, searching for a killer who was already miles away. "Chen!" Sergeant Morrison's voice cut through the chaos. "Where is he?" Maya stared at the empty window, rain blowing through the opening, like tears on glass. In her pocket, her radio waited for her report. The truth balanced on her tongue like a blade, sharp enough to cut her career, her life. Everything she'd built over 20 years of service. "He's gone," she said finally. "The suspect has fled the scene." But even as she spoke the words, Maya knew this wasn't over. In 24 hours, she would have to choose between the justice she'd sworn to uphold and the truth she'd been running. From between the badge that defined her and the guilt that was slowly consuming her soul. In the distance, thunder rolled across the Detroit skyline like the sound of approaching war. Maya sat in her car outside the Riverside warehouse at 11:47 p.m., rain drumming against the windshield like impatient fingers. The place looked different in the moonlight than it had 6 months ago under the harsh glare of police spotlights. Smaller, somehow more human, as if the darkness had stripped away its industrial menace and revealed something vulnerable underneath. She'd spent the day diving into files that should have been sealed, calling in favors with contacts who owed her silence. What she'd found made her stomach turn. Alina Blackwood hadn't been armed. The gun found at the scene belonged to someone else entirely, someone whose prints had been carefully scrubbed from the database, someone who'd walked away from the warehouse that night while Alina bled out on the concrete floor. Maya's phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Second floor. Come alone, or people start dying. She checked her service weapon one last time, then stepped out into the rain. The warehouse district was a graveyard at midnight. Empty except for the occasional patrol of security guards, who'd learned not to look too closely at the shadows between buildings. Maya had made sure tonight's patrol would be delayed, called in a false alarm on the other side of town. Whatever happened here, it would happen without witnesses. The warehouse door stood open, revealing a rectangle of darkness that seemed to swallow her flashlight beam. Maya's boots echoed on the concrete as she entered, each step taking her deeper into the past she'd been trying to forget. Halfway up the metal staircase to the second floor, she stopped. The smell hit her first. Not blood this time, but something. Cleaner, more surgical. Disinfectant maybe, or a hospital antiseptic. It reminded her of morgues and operating rooms, places where life and death balanced on the edge of a scalpel. You came. Adrian's voice drifted down from above, calm as still. Water. I keep my word, Maya replied, continuing up the stairs. Unlike some people, she found him standing in the center of the second floor, surrounded by a careful arrangement that made her breath catch. Photo enlargements covered the walls, dozens of them, showing the warehouse from every angle. Crime scene shots, security, footage, witness statements, medical records. It was her case, but not as she'd seen it before. This version told a different story entirely. Welcome to the truth, Detective, Adrian said. He wore the same expensive clothes as the night before. But now, she could see the details that money couldn't hide. The hollow shadows under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands never stopped moving, as if stillness might let the grief catch up to him. Maya approached the nearest photo. Close-up of Alina Blackwood's face taken minutes. After her death, even in death, the resemblance to Adrian was unmistakable. The same pale eyes, the same sharp cheekbones, the same aristocratic features that would have been beautiful if not for the 3 bullet holes in her chest. She was 28 years old, Adrian said quietly. 2 minutes younger than me. Taught kindergarten at a private school in Grass Point. She volunteered at animal shelters on weekends. She was afraid of spiders and loved terrible romantic comedies and made the world's worst coffee. Maya moved to the next photograph. Alina alive this time, smiling at something outside the frame. She looked nothing like the criminal Maya had been told she was shooting. Why was she here that night? Maya asked. Because they used her to get to me. Adrian walked to a table covered with documents. I'd been investigating certain irregularities in city contracts, following money trails. That led back to some very powerful people. They needed me to stop, but I wouldn't listen to threats, so they took the one thing that would make me listen. He handed her a folder. Inside were financial records, payment schedules, bank transfers that painted a picture of corruption stretching from City Hall to the police department. Names she recognized, faces she'd trusted, amounts that made her whistle low. Richardson was your partner, Adrian continued. He was also on their payroll. When Alina tried to call for help, he told her to wait, to trust him. Then he fed you false information about an armed and dangerous suspect threatening a civilian. Hostage. Maya felt the world shifting again. the ground of her reality becoming unstable. How do you know all this? Because Alina was wearing a wire, Adrian said simply. She was trying to help me gather evidence. I heard everything that happened that night, Detective, including the sound of you killing my sister. The words hit like a physical blow. Maya sank into a chair, the folder spilling its damning contents. Across her lap, I didn't know. God, Adrian, I didn't know. But you suspected something was wrong, he pressed. After the shooting, you asked questions. You filed reports. You tried to investigate. They shut me down every time. Maya's voice was barely a whisper. Richardson said I was traumatized, that I needed to let it go. And did you? Let it go? Maya looked up at him, seeing something in his pale eyes she hadn't expected. Not hatred. Not the cold fury she'd imagined driving his killing spree. Instead, she saw pain so deep it had carved hollows in his face, grief that had turned him into something harder than human. No, she admitted. I dreamed about her every night. About those last seconds before I fired. Something in her eyes. Something that didn't match what I'd been told. She was scared, Adrian said, but not of her captors. Of you. Because she could see you believed you were saving someone's life by taking hers. Maya stood abruptly, pacing, to the window that overlooked the exact spot where Alina had died. So what now? You've shown me the truth. What do you want from me? I want you to help me finish what Alina started. By committing more murders? Adrian joined her at the window, standing close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something expensive and cold. The people I killed were responsible for Elena's death. They were just the foot soldiers. The real architects of this conspiracy are still out there, still destroying lives, still corrupting everything they touch. And you think 2 more bodies will solve that? I think one detective with a badge and a conscience might be able to do what 7 murders couldn't. Adrian turned to face her fully. I think Maya Chen might be the only person left in this city who still cares more about justice than about keeping secrets. Maya felt something dangerous stirring in her chest. A hunger she'd tried to bury under 20 years of following orders and trusting the system. What are you asking me to do? Help me expose them. Use your access, your connections, your reputation. Help me finish what Alina died trying to accomplish. By breaking every oath I've ever taken. By betraying everyone who trusts me. By choosing truth over loyalty. By choosing justice over comfort. Adrian stepped closer, his voice dropping to something that was almost intimate. By choosing to be the kind of cop Alina thought you were when she was dying. Maya felt herself leaning toward him, drawn by something she couldn't name. Guilt, maybe, or responsibility, or just the terrible attraction of finally knowing the truth after months. Of living with shadows. And if I say no, then I continue alone. And more people die because I won't stop until every person responsible for Elena's death pays the price. That's not justice. That's revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing. Maya stared into his pale eyes, seeing her own reflection, distorted by grief and determination. You're asking me to help you commit murder? I'm asking you to help me prevent murder. It's the murders that will happen if we don't stop these people. The murders that happened because you and I both failed Alina when she needed us most. The words hung between them like a bridge over an abyss. Maya could cross it and enter his world of moral ambiguity and necessary sins. Or she could turn away and carry the weight of Elena's death alone for the rest of her life. Her phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number containing a single photograph. Maya's blood turned to ice as she recognized the image. Her apartment building taken from across the street. In the foreground, a figure in dark clothing watched her windows. They know you're here, Adrian said quietly, reading over her shoulder. They know you're questioning the official story. How long do you think it'll be before they decide you're too dangerous to let live? Maya looked at the photograph again, noticing details that chilled her. The timestamp showed it had been taken 4 hours ago, while she was at the station. The angle suggested the photographer had been in position for some time, waiting, watching, planning. Who sent this? Someone who wants you to know you're not safe anymore, Adrian replied. Someone who's tired of waiting for you to stop asking questions? As if summoned by his words, Maya's radio crackled to life. All units, we have a report of shots fired at 1247 Cass Avenue. Apartment building. Possible officer down. Her apartment. Someone had just shot up her apartment. Maya felt the last of her certainties crumble like sandcastles in the tide. Systems she'd trusted, the people she'd believed in, the comfortable fiction of her own innocence, all of it was gone. Stripped away by the brutal arithmetic of corruption and consequence. They're not going to let either of us walk away from this, she said, her voice steady, despite the fear clawing at her throat. No, Adrian agreed. They're not. So we have two choices. We can run separately and spend whatever time we have left looking over our shoulders, or we can stand together and fight back. Maya looked at him, really looked at him, saw not the cold-blooded killer she'd been hunting, but a man destroyed by loss and driven to terrible choices by an unjust world. She saw someone who might understand the guilt that had been eating her alive, someone who might forgive her for the mistake that had started all of this. She saw someone who might be worth saving, even if it meant damning herself. What do you need me to do? Asterisk, the safe house smelled of stale cigarettes and broken dreams. Maya sat at a scarred wooden table in the abandoned diner, watching Adrian spread photographs across the cracked formica surface like tarot cards predicting death. Outside, Detroit's industrial landscape stretched toward the horizon, a maze of rusted metal and shattered glass that matched the wreckage of her life. Senator Patricia Morrison, Adrian said, tapping the first photograph, chair of the Urban Development Committee. She's been funneling city reconstruction contracts to companies that exist only on paper. Maya studied the image of the silver-haired woman she'd met at police fundraisers. Those companies belong to Richardson's people? Richardson is small time. This goes higher. Adrian placed another photo beside the first. Assistant District Attorney Marcus Webb. He's been ensuring that any investigations into the contracts disappear into legal black holes. I know Webb. He's clean. Nobody's clean in this, Maya. Adrian's pale eyes met hers across the table. That's what Alina discovered. That's what got her killed. 3 days had passed since the warehouse meeting. 3 days of hiding in safe houses and abandoned buildings, living on convenience store, food and adrenaline, while their faces appeared on every news channel in the state. The official story was that Detective Maya Chen had suffered a psychological break following the Phantom murders, had gone rogue, and was now considered armed and extremely dangerous. The truth was more complicated. Maya had accessed the police database one last time before going underground, downloading files that painted a picture of corruption reaching into every corner of city government. But getting the information was only half the battle.
Ali
Had to decide what to do with it. We need more than photographs and financial records, Maya said, pushing away a cup of coffee that tasted like motor oil. We need someone willing to testify. I might have someone. Adrian pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts. Dr. Sarah Martinez. She was the original medical examiner assigned to Elena's case before Jennifer Walsh took over. Maya remembered. The name from the files? Martinez was reassigned the day after the shooting. Sent to the county coroner's office because she refused to sign off on the falsified autopsy report. Adrian found the contact, showed Maya the screen. She's been waiting for someone to ask the right questions. You think she'll talk? I think. She's been wanting to talk for 6 months. Maya stood, pacing to the grimy window that overlooked the abandoned parking lot. In the distance, the Detroit River reflected the city lights like broken mirrors. Assuming she agrees, how do we get her statement to someone who matters? Every reporter, every prosecutor, every judge who might care is either compromised or too scared to act. There's one person they can't touch. Adrian joined her at the window. Federal prosecutor Janet Kim. She's been investigating corruption in city contracts, but she doesn't have the local connections to get real evidence. Kim's federal. She can't touch local police matters. She can if those local police matters involve federal funding, which they do. Adrian turned to face her, his expression intense. Maya, half the money stolen from these contracts came from federal urban development grants. If we can prove the connection between Richardson's network and the federal fraud, Kim can bring RICO charges. Maya felt a flicker of hope, the first she'd experienced in days. That could work. But we'd need Martinez's testimony to establish the cover-up. And we'd need more evidence to prove the federal connection. I know where to get it. Adrian moved back to the table, gathering up the photographs. Richardson keeps files at his house. Physical documents, the kind that can't be erased from servers or explained away as computer glitches. His house is going to be under surveillance. They know we're working together now. Not surveillance, protection. Richardson is scared. Maya, he knows that if this comes out, he's the most expendable person in the chain. They'll throw him to the wolves to save themselves. Maya studied Adrian's face, looking for signs of the cold calculation that had driven him to murder 7 people. Instead, she found something that looked almost like hope. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that scared people make mistakes, and people who feel protected get careless. Adrian smiled, and for the first time, Maya saw not the grief-stricken killer, but the man he might have been in another life. Richardson trusts his protection detail. What if that protection detail had orders to bring him in? You want me to impersonate a federal agent? I want you to be what you've always been, a cop seeking justice. Adrian reached across the table, covered her hand with his. Maya, you still have friends in the department. People who knew you before this started, who trust your judgment. The touch sent electricity up Maya's arm, a reminder of the attraction that had been building between them despite everything, or maybe because of everything. Shared danger had a way of stripping away pretense, revealing the raw human need for connection. Detective Lisa Park, Maya said. My former partner before Richardson. She's good people. Can you trust her? My life. Maya hesitated. But can I trust her with yours? We don't have a choice. Time's running out, Maya. Every day we wait is another day for them to clean up loose ends. Another day for more people like Alina to die. Maya pulled out her phone, stared at Lisa's contact information. One call would set everything in motion. Would cross a line from which there could be no return. If this goes wrong, if Park doesn't believe me, or if she's been compromised, we're both dead. We're both dead anyway if we don't try. Maya dialed the number, her heart pounding as the phone rang. On the third ring, Lisa Park answered. Maya, Jesus Christ, where are you? The entire department is looking for you. I know. Lisa, I need you. To listen to me very carefully. Can you talk? I'm alone in my car. Maya, what the hell is going on? The news is saying you've lost it, that you're working with some serial killer. The news is lying. Lisa, remember the warehouse shooting 6 months ago? Elena Blackwood? There was a pause. Your officer involved. What about it? She wasn't armed. Richardson fed me false information. Elena Blackwood was an innocent woman, and I killed her because I was lied to. Maya, that's Park's voice trailed off. Are you saying Richardson set you up? I'm saying Richardson is part of something bigger, something that got Elena killed and is going to get more people killed if we don't stop it. Another pause. Longer this time. When Park spoke again, her voice was different, harder. What do you need? Maya felt tears of relief threaten to spill. I need you to bring Richardson in for questioning tonight, but it has to look official, like federal orders came down. Federal. Maya, I can't just Lisa. Richardson has evidence of federal fraud hidden in his house. If we can get him away from his protection detail, if we can search his house legally, we can expose the whole network. And if I'm wrong, if you're wrong, my career is over. Maya looked at Adrian, saw him nod encouragingly. If we're wrong, then I surrender myself for psychological evaluation, and you can claim you were trying to help a disturbed colleague. But if we're right, if we can prove what really happened, we save lives and catch the real criminals. The silence stretched for so long that Maya wondered if the call had dropped. Finally, Park spoke. Where do you want to meet? 2 hours later, Maya crouched in the shadows behind Richardson's suburban home, watching federal agents escort her former partner to an unmarked car. The arrest had been clean, professional, with no indication that Park was acting on anything other than legitimate orders. Adrian emerged from the back door, carrying a leather briefcase that looked heavy with documents. "Got it," he whispered, joining Maya behind a line of evergreen trees. "Bank records, payment schedules, photographs, everything. Let's go." They were halfway to the street when the first shot shattered the night silence. Maya threw herself sideways, pulling Adrian down with her as bullets chewed through the tree branches above their heads. In the distance, she could hear shouting, see muzzle flashes from at least 3 different positions. "They set us up," Adrian gasped, blood seeping from a graze on his temple. "Your partner sold us out." "No," Maya returned. "Fire toward the muzzle flashes, her training taking over." Lisa wouldn't, but even as she said it, Maya saw the truth in the tactical precision of the ambush. Someone had known exactly where they would be, exactly when they would emerge from the house. Someone had fed their location to a kill team that was now systematically cutting off every escape route. Her radio crackled with Park's voice. "Target acquired. Maya Chen is down. Repeat, suspect is down. Blackwood is wounded but mobile. The betrayal hit harder than any bullet." Lisa Park, her former partner, her trusted friend, the woman she'd believed would die before compromising her integrity, had sold them out with the casual efficiency of a professional. "Maya, we have to move." Adrian grabbed her arm, pulling her toward a gap in the perimeter now. They ran through suburban backyards, pursued by voices and flashlights and the occasional crack of gunfire. Maya's mind reeled with the implications of Park's betrayal. If Lisa was compromised, how deep did the corruption go? How many people she trusted were actually working for the other side? They reached a drainage culvert that led toward the river, splashing through knee-deep water that smelled of industrial runoff and desperation. Behind them, the search was intensifying. Dogs barking in the distance. There, Adrian pointed to a storm drain opening ahead. "We can follow it to the river." But as they approached the opening, Maya heard something that made her blood freeze. Children's voices, high and frightened, coming from somewhere up ahead. A school group on a late-night nature walk, or teenagers exploring places they shouldn't be. "Adrian," she whispered, grabbing his arm. "There are kids in there, I know." His voice was flat, emotionless. "We'll have to go around them." "No." Maya realized with horrible clarity what he was thinking. "Adrian, no. Maya, they've seen us. If we let them go, they'll report our location. The kill team will have us in minutes." Maya stared at him, seeing the cold calculation in his pale eyes, the willingness to sacrifice innocence for survival. This was what grief had made him, what loss had carved from the man she'd been falling for. This was the killer she'd been hunting. "I won't let you hurt children, then you'll let them hurt us." Adrian's hand moved toward the weapon tucked in his waistband. I'm sorry, but I can't let Elena's death mean nothing." The moment stretched between them like a blade, sharp with betrayal and terrible choices. Maya realized that she'd been wrong about everything. About Park, about corruption, about the possibility of redemption. Most of all, she'd been wrong about Adrian Blackwood. He wasn't a man seeking justice. It was exactly what the news report said he was. A killer who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. "Step away from the weapon, Adrian." Maya drew her service pistol, trained it on the man she'd trusted, the man she'd almost loved. "Step away and let the children go." Asterisk, the storm drain echoed with the sound of children's laughter. Innocent and pure in the darkness where Maya held a gun on the only person who'd shown her the truth in 6 months of lies. Adrian stood perfectly still, his hands raised, the briefcase of evidence at his feet like an offering to gods who demanded blood. "You don't understand," he said quietly. "Those aren't children, Maya. I can hear them laughing." Maya's finger tightened on the trigger. "I can hear them talking. Audio recording. Motion activated." Adrian nodded toward the storm drain opening. "It's a trap, Maya. They knew we'd come this way. They knew I'd try to avoid hurting innocents, and they knew you'd try to stop me." Maya's blood turned to ice as the implication hit her. The voices continued their cheerful chatter, but now she could hear the electronic distortion, the slight echo that marked them as artificial. "How did they know?" "'Cause I told them." The words came from behind her, spoken in Lisa Park's familiar voice. Maya spun, keeping her weapon trained on Adrian while trying to track the new threat. Park emerged from the shadows 20 feet away, her service weapon drawn but pointed at the ground. Lisa, Maya's voice cracked with betrayal. Why? Because some truths are too dangerous to tell. Park stepped closer, her face drawn with what looked like genuine regret. Maya, you were my partner for 4 years. You saved my life twice. Do you really think I'd sell you out for money? Then why? Maya kept her gun on Adrian, but her attention was split between the two people who had defined her reality for the past week. Why the ambush? Why the lies? Because Adrian Blackwood isn't who you think he is. Park's weapon came up, not pointing at Maya, but at Adrian. Tell her, Adrian. Tell her what you really are. Adrian's pale eyes never left Maya's face. Who I said I was. Elena's brother. A man seeking justice for his sister's murder. You're also a federal agent, Park said coldly. Special Agent Adrian Blackwood. FBI Organized Crime Task Force? You've been undercover for 18 months? Investigating the same corruption network that got Elena killed? The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She stared at Adrian, searching. His face for confirmation or denial? That's impossible. Is it? Park moved closer, her weapon still trained on Adrian. Think about it, Maya. How did a civilian get access to crime scene photos? How did he know details about the investigation that were never released to the public? How did he manage to kill 7 people without leaving a trace of forensic evidence? Mind reeled as the pieces clicked into place. The surgical precision of the murders. The way Adrian had always seemed one step ahead of the investigation. His detailed knowledge of police procedures and federal law enforcement protocols. You're FBI, she whispered. Adrian nodded slowly. I went undercover to investigate city corruption. Lena was my contact, helping me gather evidence from her position as a teacher in the private school attended by several councilmen's children. She overheard conversations, photographed documents, past information, and someone discovered she was working with you. Richardson figured it out. He fed you false information about an armed suspect because he needed Elena dead and needed it to look like a legitimate police shooting. Adrian's voice was heavy with guilt. I should have protected her better. Should have pulled her out when things got dangerous. Maya felt the world shifting again, all her certainties crumbling like sand castles. So the murders, the 7 victims, were all part of the federal investigation. We staged their deaths, put them in witness protection. Adrian's eyes met hers. Maya, nobody died. Except Elena. The bodies I saw in the morgue belonged to people who were already dead. Jane and John Does from other cases, altered to match our supposed victims. Park lowered her weapon slightly. It was the only way to maintain Adrian's cover while gathering evidence. Maya stared at the two of them, trying to process the magnitude of the deception. You've been lying to me from the beginning? Had to, Adrian said. The corruption goes deeper than you know, Maya. We couldn't risk exposing the operation, even to you, especially to you, Park added, because you were the unknowing trigger that started all of this. Richardson used you to eliminate Elena, but he also made you the perfect scapegoat if things went wrong. What are you talking about? Park pulled out her phone, showed Maya a series of text messages. These started coming in tonight, after the fake arrest. Orders to eliminate both you and Adrian, to stage it as a murder-suicide. The official story would be that the traumatized detective finally snapped and killed the serial killer who'd been manipulating her, then turned the gun on herself. Maya read the messages, recognizing the cold efficiency of a plan designed to tie up loose ends permanently. Who sent these? That's what we're trying to find out. Adrian picked up the briefcase, opened it to reveal not the documents Maya expected, but sophisticated surveillance equipment. Everything we've done for the past week has been designed to flush out the top level of the conspiracy. Okay, the people giving the orders. You used me as bait. We used ourselves as bait, Park corrected. Maya, I've been undercover too, not federal. But internal affairs? I've been investigating corruption in the department for 8 months. Maya felt the last of her reality slip away. Everyone's been lying to me. Everyone's been trying to protect you, Adrian said gently. Maya, you were never supposed to be part of this. You were supposed to go through counseling, take early retirement, disappear into a quiet life somewhere safe. But I couldn't let it go. Double quotes, no, you couldn't. Which meant Richardson and his people saw you as a continuing threat. Park holstered her weapon, moved closer. Maya, the corruption isn't just about city contracts. It's about human trafficking, drug distribution, murder for hire. Alina stumbled onto something that connects Detroit organized crime to federal officials. Maya sank onto a concrete ledge, overwhelmed by the scope of the conspiracy. So what? Happens now? You've exposed the network? You have your evidence? Where does that leave me? That depends on you, Adrian said. We can arrange for you to disappear. New identity, new life, federal protection, or you can help us finish this. Really finish it. Adrian sat beside her, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his pale eyes. Maya, you're the key to the whole thing. Richardson used you to kill Alina, but that also makes you the witness who can testify to his methods. Your testimony, combined with our evidence, can bring down everyone involved, including the federal officials, especially the federal officials. Maya looked at Park, then back at Adrian. And if I refuse, if I just want this nightmare to end, then we respect that choice, Park said. But Maya, Alina died trying to expose these people. If we don't finish what she started, her death really will have been meaningless. The sound of approaching vehicles echoed through the storm drain. I could see headlights in the distance, moving fast. Company's coming. Richardson's cleanup crew, Adrian confirmed, checking his watch. Right on schedule? You expected them? We've been tracking their communications all night. They think they're coming to clean up 2 bodies. Adrian smiled grimly. Dead. They're walking into a federal task force. As if summoned by his words, the storm drain filled with the sound of helicopter rotors. Spotlights blazed to life, turning night into harsh day. Through the concrete opening, Maya could see federal agents taking positions, automatic weapons. Trained on the approaching vehicles, Special Agent Blackwood, this is command. You are clear to bring the packages home. Adrian spoke into a throat mic Maya hadn't noticed before. Roger, command. Packages are secure and ready for extraction. Park moved to Maya's other side. Maya, we need an answer. Are you ready to testify? Are you ready to help us finish this? Maya watched the federal operation unfold with military precision. Cars surrounded, occupants arrested, evidence seized. It was everything she dreamed of as a young cop. Justice served with overwhelming force and absolute authority, but she'd learned that absolute authority could be absolutely corrupted, that the people sworn to protect could become the very threats they claimed to fight against. I have conditions, she said finally. Name them. I want to see Elena's grave. I want to apologize to her personally. Adrian nodded. Done. I want Richardson to know why he's going down. I want him to understand that Elena's death wasn't meaningless. Also done. Maya stood, brushing concrete dust from her clothes. I want the truth. All of it. No more lies, no more deceptions, no more using people as unknowing pawns in federal operations. Adrian and Park exchanged a look that Maya couldn't interpret. That's going to be more complicated, Park said carefully. Why? Because the federal investigation isn't over, Adrian admitted. What we've uncovered here is just one node in a national network. We're going to need ongoing cooperation from local law enforcement. You're asking me to become a federal asset? We're asking you to help us save lives, Park said. Maya, there are Alina Blackwoods in every major city. Innocent people being killed to protect corrupt networks. We can stop it, but only if we work together. Maya looked at the 2 people who had manipulated her, lied to her, and ultimately trusted her with the truth. Despite everything, she found herself believing in their mission. And the possibility that justice could still mean something in a world gone mad with corruption? There's something else, she said quietly. Something neither of you has asked about. What's that? Maya met Adrian's eyes, seeing not the killer she'd hunted, but the grieving brother who'd sacrificed everything for justice. Whether I can forgive you for making me fall in love with a lie? The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of helicopters and distant sirens. Adrian reached out slowly, took her hand in his. The grief was real, he said softly. The anger was real. What I feel for you, Maya, that's real too. Everything else was just the job. Maya studied his face, looking for deception, for the cold calculation she'd seen in the storm drain. Instead, she found vulnerability, hope, and something that might have been love if they could survive what came next. Then prove it, she said, standing and pulling him up with her. Prove that Adrian Blackwood is more than just another federal lie. As they walked toward the federal extraction team, Maya felt the weight of her decision settling around her like armor. She was no longer Detective Maya Chen, traumatized cop struggling with guilt. She was something new, something forged in the crucible of corruption and betrayal. She was a weapon pointed at the heart of organized crime, and she was ready to fire. 6 months later, Maya stood in the federal courthouse rain, watching Assistant District Attorney Marcus Webb being led away in handcuffs. The corruption network had collapsed like a house of cards once Richardson started talking. Each revelation leading to another arrest, another conspiracy exposed to the harsh light of federal investigation. She'd kept her word about visiting Elena's grave. Had stood in the cold Detroit cemetery with Adrian while he told his sister about the justice finally served in her name. The headstone was simple, elegant, marked only with Elena's name and the dates of her too short life. Orchids, the same flowers Adrian had once left at crime scenes as his calling card. It's over, Adrian said, joining her on the courthouse steps. He looked different now, cleaner somehow, as if the completion of his mission had washed away some invisible stain. The federal investigation had been successful beyond anyone's expectations, dismantling criminal networks in 12 cities and leading to over 200 arrests. This part's over, Maya corrected. But there's always another case, another network, another Elena waiting to be saved or avenged. They walked through downtown Detroit in comfortable silence, past buildings being renovated with legitimately acquired federal funds, past neighborhoods where children could play without fear of being caught in the crossfire of corruption. The city wasn't healed yet, but it was healing. And that had to be enough. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Lisa Park, now officially part of the FBI's Public Corruption Task Force. The message contained a single photo, Richardson in his federal prison uniform, looking older and smaller than the intimidating figure he'd once been. Any regrets? Adrian asked, noticing her reading the message about Richardson. No. Maya pocketed the phone. About us? That's more complicated. They'd been dancing around their relationship for months, neither quite ready to address what had happened between them during those intense days. When trust was a luxury they couldn't afford, the attraction was still there, stronger perhaps for having survived betrayal and revelation. It was complicated by the knowledge that their first meeting had been orchestrated, their connection manipulated as part of a federal operation. Maya. Adrian stopped walking, turned to face her fully. What we had in the beginning, the lies and manipulation that wasn't real, but what we have now, what we built after the truth came out, that's completely real. Or is this just another federal operation? Another undercover assignment that requires you to maintain a relationship with a valuable asset? The question had haunted her for months. Maya had thrown herself into her new role as a federal consultant, helping to identify and investigate corruption in law enforcement agencies across the Midwest. The work was satisfying in ways her old job had never been, but it came with the constant awareness that in the federal world, everyone was either an agent, an asset, or a target. There are no more operations for me, Adrian said quietly. I resigned from the bureau 3 months ago, didn't you know? Maya stared at him, shocked. You resigned? Why? Because I couldn't be objective anymore. Because every case started looking like Elena's case. Every victim started looking like you. Adrian reached out, took her hands in his. Maya, I became a federal agent to catch bad guys and protect innocent people. But somewhere along the way, I started caring more about one specific innocent person than about the mission. That's the job, Adrian. We're supposed to care about the people we protect. Not the way I care about you. Not in a way that makes me willing to compromise operations, bend rules, risk everything just to keep you safe. Adrian's pale eyes were intense with emotion she'd learned to recognize as genuine. Maya, I love you, not because you're useful to federal investigations, not because you make a good asset, but because you're the strongest, most principled person I've ever met. Maya felt tears threatening to spill, emotions she'd kept carefully controlled for months finally breaking free. Adrian, you lied to me. For weeks, you let me believe you were a killer, let me fall for someone who didn't exist. I know. I'll spend the rest of my life making up for that if you'll let me. How? How do you make up for that kind of deception? By being completely honest with you from now on. By choosing you over every mission, every operation, every federal priority. Adrian stepped closer, his voice dropping to something that was almost prayer. Maya, I'm just a man who lost his sister and found the woman he wants to spend his life with. Everything else is just details. Maya searched his face, looking for signs of the manipulation she'd become expert at detecting. Instead, she found only vulnerability, hope, and a love so deep it had cost him his career and his calling. I love you too, she admitted, the words feeling like both surrender and victory. But I'm scared, Adrian. I'm scared that loving you means losing myself in another lie. Then don't lose yourself. Keep being the person who wouldn't let me hurt. Those children in the storm drain who insisted on visiting Elena's grave, who demanded truth even when lies would have been easier. Adrian cupped her face in his hands. Maya, you saved me from becoming something I never wanted to be. Let me spend the rest of my life returning the favor. The rain began to fall again, Detroit's perpetual tears washing the city clean for another day. Maya felt the last of her defenses crumble as Adrian kissed her, tasting of hope and possibility in the strange redemption that came from choosing love over safety when they broke apart. Where they'd first met in another life, when she was hunting a killer and he was pretending to be one. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Different ending this time? Adrian asked. Different everything, Maya replied. Okay, maybe different is what we need. They walked into the restaurant together. No longer hunter and hunted, no longer federal agent and local asset, but simply two people who had found each other in the darkness and chosen to step into the light together. Outside, the rain continued to fall on the city they'd helped to save, washing away the last traces of corruption and betrayal. In the distance, a church bell tolled the hour, marking not an ending, but a beginning. The first notes of a song that would be theirs alone. Maya Chen had spent 20 years believing in justice. 6 months learning about truth, and one perfect moment discovering that sometimes the greatest victory wasn't catching the criminal or solving the case. Sometimes it was simply choosing love over fear, trust over suspicion, hope over the comfortable certainty of cynicism. As they settled into their booth, Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. No more lies, he promised. No more lies, Maya agreed, and meant it with every fiber of her being. The case was closed. The corruption was exposed. The guilty were punished, and the innocent were protected. But her story was just beginning. The end, asterisk like this. Video, if the story touched your heart, subscribe for more emotional tales. And share with someone who believes in the power of true love, and let us know in the comments. We love connecting with our global community of romance lovers.